What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going over the SpongeBob movie, The Search for SquarePants. So let's get into that. My name is Leo, and me talking about anything movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy. You are in the right place. And like I said, we're talking about the SpongeBob movie. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Now, I am a massive fan of SpongeBob. I went to the movie theater with my Patrick shirt, my SpongeBob socks, my Patrick Crocs. I am a huge SpongeBob fan, especially of those earlier seasons, season 1 through 4. I can tolerate some of the later seasons, but for the most part, season 1 through 4 are the golden age of SpongeBob. I grew up watching SpongeBob. That first SpongeBob movie is one of my favorite movies ever, one of my favorite animated movies. I think the movie is hilarious. And I am always self-aware that newer SpongeBob isn't the same as we used to remember it. Some of it can be pretty good. Some of it can be pretty funny. You know, some of the newer episodes that I've seen have actually got me to laugh, and I've been interested in it, but it's just not the same. I like watching the original, season 1 through 4, in my opinion. But going into this movie, I had a lot of high hopes because I see a lot of reports that the Rotten Tomatoes is at like 91%. The critics are loving it. The audience are loving it. People think it's hilarious. The trailer seemed interesting, and I had a lot of high hopes. And for the most part, I did have a lot of fun with this movie. There are some things that were like, I don't know, which we'll obviously get more into it. But as a SpongeBob movie, this might be one of the best ones since that original 2004, I think is when it came out. But since that original SpongeBob movie. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my pros and cons. So starting with my pros, I think the story here was actually very, very fun, where you have SpongeBob who is trying to kind of feel like he's a big guy again, a big man. He wants to feel like an adult, not be treated like a kid. And so he asked Mr. Krabs kind of what he can do to feel like an adult, how not to be scared. And he tells him this whole little backstory, how he used to be a captain and he flew around with the Flying Dutchman, and he got his Smuck Buckler certificate, which basically means that you are just the bravest, most courageous person ever. And SpongeBob wants to do that. So he kind of gets himself entangled with the Flying Dutchman. And you obviously start to realize that things aren't what they seem. Flying Dutchman isn't just trying to help him. He's trying to reverse a curse on himself by using SpongeBob, a pure heart. And that's a very fun concept. I think that's very, very much on the nose to what a SpongeBob episode would kind of be. Something that would be just a very fun, quick episode, but obviously stretched into movie length. And I think it works. I think there was a good little story here. I think everybody was, for the most part, pretty funny. I had a lot of good laughs. Not all the comedy landed for me, but there was a couple that I did laugh actually out loud, and the audience laughed out loud, which was very interesting. I was very surprised to see on Christmas Day, I saw this movie on Christmas Day, that it was pretty much a packed house to go watch SpongeBob, and we had a lot of people laughing, a lot of people enjoying themselves. When the credits rolled, people started to clap and cheer, which I was very surprised about, because the movie overall wasn't like, oh my god, this is one of the best SpongeBob movies ever, but it was very fun. I thought it was very fun. You had a lot of good humor here, a lot of good moments. I liked all the characters. I think it felt as close as you possibly can get to older SpongeBob, but it still had definitely that newer vibe to it, like the newer seasons where everyone seems to be a little bit more dumb than they really are. When you look at older SpongeBob episodes or seasons, SpongeBob and Patrick weren't really that big of idiots, but they tend to make them a lot more dumb in these newer seasons. And in this movie, they definitely act a lot more dumb than what they typically, you would see in the show back in the day. So it's and that's where it doesn't feel too much like SpongeBob. But overall, I do think this was very fun. I liked kind of the visuals of it. I'm not always the biggest fan of this like clay style that they do with the newer SpongeBob movies, but I think it looked really good, especially when you go into like the underworld. It seemed very fun, very cool, a lot of good visuals. The colors were super, super vibrant, as you would expect from like a SpongeBob movie. The Flying Dutchman was funny. SpongeBob was funny. Patrick was hilarious, of course. That's my favorite. So it was a fun little story here. There's not really much to kind of go over. It's what you expect from something that's a SpongeBob movie. It's fun. It's a good time. It's a kid movie, of course. It's catered a lot more towards kids. But I just generally had a very decent time. I had a lot of fun. I had my good laughs. I chuckled, and it was what I expected. I do think this is probably the best SpongeBob movie apart from that original one. And so I think we're heading in the right direction with the SpongeBob franchise. If we continue going this way and kind of reverting back to those original ways, I think SpongeBob can kind of have a little bit of a revision here. And I just had a lot of fun time. Like I said, there's not really much to nitpick about a SpongeBob movie. All we're really getting is SpongeBob doing these challenges to try to be a schmuck buckler, however you say it. And you have the Flying Dutchman trying to reverse this curse of him being the ghostly ghost of the seven seas, and Mr. Krabs trying to save SpongeBob. That is all that is going on. There's not anything much deeper than that. This is just a fun little ride, and this kind of made me feel like we should get more rides like at Universal's with SpongeBob, because you definitely have certain moments where you feel like you're on a little roller coaster here, and you literally do go on roller coasters in this movie. So it would be fun to see SpongeBob kind of come back to theme parks and stuff like that. But that's besides the point. But I did have a lot of fun with this movie. It was very fun. Definitely, obviously, not one of the best movies of the year. Not anywhere near what I would typically want from a SpongeBob movie, but it is fun. Good laugh. If you had time to take the family out, I think you guys will enjoy it. It's only an hour and a half long, so it's not like you're wasting 2-3 hours watching a SpongeBob movie. It's a very, very quick in and out type of film, and you will have a good time, in my opinion. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get to my cons. And my cons, really, if I want to be super nitpicky here, is I just don't think the dialogue was that strong. And it's not even what they were saying. I mean, obviously there was a lot of like low hanging fruit when it comes to dialogue and jokes. And while some of them did land, a lot of it didn't land, where you kind of just are watching the screen like, okay, what's going on next? But that wasn't my biggest issue. It was just the way the dialogue was being delivered. The delivery of the dialogue felt very like as if they got the person that's voicing Squidward. They throughout a day he recorded all of his lines, and then you got the person that's voicing SpongeBob or the person voicing Patrick. They record all their lines separately, and they just mashed them in together because it felt very like choppy the way the dialogue. He'll say his lines, it'll be like pause for a second. He'll say his lines, pause for a second. He'll say his lines, pause for a second. It didn't feel like a flow like a regular conversation would be. It felt very like, all right, just say your lines in whatever tone you want. They say their lines, cool. Say the next line, cool. Say the next line. And that's kind of how it all got meshed into it. So the dialogue was very weird in that way. I don't know if anybody else noticed that or anybody else cared for that, but I did kind of notice that when I was watching the movie, where I was like, I just don't like the way they're talking. It's kind of weird to me. Besides that, I do wish we got more characters involved. Like Sandy wasn't a part of this. Plankton wasn't really a part of this movie or anything like that. I wish there was more SpongeBob characters involved. And then I wish the humor landed more. Like I said, there was moments where I literally laughed out loud and had a pretty big chuckle, a pretty big laugh. But for the most part, the movie as an entirety was a decently funny movie. I just wish this movie was hilarious and I was like laughing my ass off the entire time, because that would have just elevated this movie so much more. So I do wish the movie just would have been a little more funnier, and they wouldn't use so much low hanging fruit. Like you have like butt jokes and just really random, just kiddish jokes. I wish it was more like old school SpongeBob, where the jokes felt more adult heavy, even in a kiddish show, where there's a lot more innuendos or very subtle jokes, or like physical comedy, the way they used to do, like with their close-ups and things like that. So I just wish it was more original SpongeBob humor. But overall, I do think it was still decently funny. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about SpongeBob, the Search for SquarePants, in the comment section down below. Are you guys a big fan of SpongeBob? Do you guys like this newer SpongeBob, or you guys are more bigger fan of the original type of SpongeBob stuff? Definitely love to hear our guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. But again, if you guys have time with anything movie, TV show, video related, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.